Hello and welcome to this edition of Wineskins. I'm Father Jim Corda. Wineskins is a program that features reflections on the lives of the saints and the sacred scriptures, along with a variety of issues and topics, all from a Catholic perspective. Wineskins is brought to you through the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. On our program today, I will interview Dana Balish from WFMJ TV 21 as part 3 in the series called Spotlight. We will also hear more information on the life and times of St. Padre Pio, and today, as the Church celebrates the 24th Sunday in Ordinary Time, we will get a deeper insight into those particular Sunday readings. That and more on Wineskins. Catholic Charities is an important part of the life of the Church and her members. To share with us an important issue is Rachel Herbelich.
A few weeks ago, we learned from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, that the number of opioid deaths in the United States may actually be understated by as much as 24%. There are a number of legitimate reasons why this figure is inaccurately reported, but the truth remains. We have a serious epidemic on our hands that appears to be gaining momentum. This epidemic is destroying lives and fracturing families in our communities and neighborhoods. While the use of heroin and opioids crosses socioeconomic classes, as well as other demographic categories, the CDC reports that overdose rates are highest among non-Hispanic whites ages 25 to 54. Men are more likely to die from overdose than women, but the gap is closing, as evidenced by Samantha's case. Samantha was raised in a stable, supportive family. The 25-year-old college graduate had a full-time job, a home of her own, a fiancé, and a wide circle of friends. Her use of a common prescription pain medication following minor surgery quickly snowballed into a full-fledged addiction. When prescription refills were no longer available, Samantha found a friend of a friend who provided her the pills her body craved. On the night she died, she did not know that the drug she had purchased, which resembled the prescription tablets she was used to taking, contained carfentanil, an elephant tranquilizer thousands of times more powerful than morphine. In less than 2 months from the date of her surgery, Samantha was dead. About 90 others in the U.S. shared Samantha's fate that day. According to the CDC, 91 Americans die each day from prescription opioids and heroin. However, as recent reports suggest, that number is most likely higher. The Ohio Department of Health finds that prescription painkillers account for nearly 37% of unintentional overdose deaths in Ohio. 4 of our 6 diocesan counties, Columbiana, Mahoning, Stark, and Trumbull, are designated among 20 Ohio counties as the hardest hit by the opioid epidemic. In the midst of a crisis so severe, right here in our diocese, what is Catholic Charities doing to provide help and create hope? The ways in which the 3 Catholic Charity social service agencies in our diocese have responded to the opioid crisis vary according to local needs and agency capacity. Some staff members have received training on how to administer naloxone or Narcan, a medication designed to reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. One of our agencies hosted an open house for substance abuse counselors who bear the stress of watching many of their clients succumb to their addictions. A Catholic Charity service site is also used after hours for Narcotics Anonymous meetings. Catholic Charity staff members participate in community discussions and task forces working to develop solutions to the opioid crisis. Caseworkers attend workshops and seminars to learn the latest information so that they can better serve their clients and the community. Although Catholic Charities in the Diocese of Youngstown does not provide substance abuse services directly, people who are impacted by addiction come to Catholic Charities for help with food, rent, utilities, and other basic needs. Some of our homeless clients are addicted to opiates and require our assistance in linking them with resources and treatment centers. Grandparents, whose own sons and daughters are struggling with addiction, come to Catholic Charities in tears when they suddenly take custody of their grandchildren and have nowhere to turn. Despite the heartbreaking situations we witness in our ministry, It is often much easier to provide help than it is to create hope for families and communities devastated by addiction. But, as Catholic Charities, we must persevere in our efforts to bring hope to the hopeless. One of the most recognizable ways we share hope is through our very presence across the diocese. Our doors are open, and our hospitality extends to all who look to a faith-based organization like ours when they feel alone, forgotten, and desperate. Inspired by the gospel, Catholic Charity strives to be the face of Jesus to all who are hurting. By reaching out with compassion and service, working with others in our communities to develop solutions to the problems caused by addiction, and advocating for sufficient government funding to address the opioid crisis in our communities, Catholic Charities can spark hope in the darkness. You can help the spark of hope grow into a flame by praying for those who struggle with addiction and for their loved ones. Listen with love and concern to those who are facing difficult family situations because of substance abuse. Pray for healing in our communities. Don't be afraid to talk about what is happening all around us. The more we talk, listen, and share with one another, the more we gain control over the crisis and allow hope to spread. For more information about prescription opioid drug abuse and heroin, visit the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services at www.mha.ohio.gov. Again, that's www.mha.ohio.gov. For Wineskins, I'm Rachel Herbelich.
St. Padre Pio was a priest. To tell us more is Brother Dominic Calabro. He is from the Society of St. Paul in Canfield and the production assistant for CTNY.
Francisco, named in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, was born to parents who were peasant farmers in a small Italian village of Pietrelcina on May 25, 1887. From his childhood, Francisco was very devout and at an early age felt drawn to the priesthood. At the age of 15, he joined the Capuchins and became a novice a year later. He received the habit in 1902 and was ordained to the priesthood in 1910 after 7 years of study, becoming known as Padre Pio. He was drafted during World War I, but when he was discovered to have tuberculosis, he was discharged. In 1917, he was assigned to the friary in San Giovanni Rotondo, 75 miles from the city of Bari on the Adriatic. On September 20th, 1918, Padre Pio was kneeling in front of a large crucifix when he had a vision of Jesus. When the vision ended, he had the stigmata, the visible marks of the crucifixion, in his hands, feet, and side, making him the first stigmatized priest in the history of the Church. The doctor who examined him could not find any natural cause for his wounds. Life became more complicated after that. Medical doctors, church authorities, and curiosity seekers came to see Padre Pio. In 1924 and again in 1931, the authenticity of the stigmata was questioned. Padre Pio was not permitted to celebrate Mass publicly or to hear confessions. He did not complain of these decisions, which were soon reversed. However, he wrote no letters after 1924. His only other writing, a pamphlet on the agony of Jesus, was done before 1924. Padre Pio rarely left the friary after he received the stigmata, but busloads of people soon began coming to see him. Each morning after 5 a.m. Mass in a crowded church, he heard confessions until noon. He took a mid-morning break to bless the sick and all who came to see him. Every afternoon, he also heard confessions. In time, his confessional ministry would take 10 hours a day. Penitents had to take a number so that the situation could be handled. Many of them have said that Padre Pio knew details of their lives that they had never mentioned. Padre Pio saw Jesus in all the sick and the suffering. At his urging, a fine 350-bed hospital was built on nearby Mount Gargano. The idea arose in 1940. A committee began to collect money. Ground was broken in 1946. Building the hospital was a technical wonder because of the difficulty of getting water there and of hauling up the building supplies. One of Padre Pio's sufferings was that unscrupulous people several times circulated prophecies they claimed originated from him. He never made prophecies about world events and never gave an opinion on matters that he felt belonged to the church authorities to decide. Upon his death on September 23, 1968, the wounds were no longer visible. In fact, there was no scarring and the skin was completely renewed. The wounds of the stigmata were not the only mystical phenomenon experienced by Padre Pio. The blood from the stigmata had an odor described by many as similar to that of perfume or flowers, and the gift of bilocation was attributed to him. Padre Pio had the ability to read the hearts of the penitents who flocked to him for confession, which he heard for 10 or 12 hours per day. Padre Pio used the confessional to bring both sinners and devout souls closer to God. He would know just the right word of counsel or encouragement that was needed. He died on September 23, 1968, at the age of 81. His funeral was attended by 100,000 people. He was beatified in 1999 and canonized in 2002. For Wineskins, I'm Brother Dominic Calabro.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm talking with Dana Balish from Channel 21. Dana, before our break, we were talking about faith. And faith really, I think, in all of our lives, whether we're Christian or Jewish or Orthodox, Protestant, whatever faith we are, or even no faith, that element really has to be there because there is some supreme being, there's someone greater than we are that hopefully helps us to put things more into perspective. Why and how is faith kind of managed or helped your life?
Well, I think first of all, I went to parochial school for 8 years at St. Pat's in Hubbard, and it was great. I think at that point you learn how important church is. I try not to miss, try to go. If I can't go to my regular church, then you try to find somewhere else to go. And I just think it's part of everyday life. When I travel, I try to go, find a church, and go. And I've been in churches in Washington State and places that I've traveled. And I just think that's important because, God is everywhere. Right. And sometimes, I think when we deal with death, you always kind of figure out why this happened. And I think, when you prepare yourself and go to Mass, on a weekly basis, I think that helps you prepare for those unfortunate incidents.
Before the break, you had mentioned celebrity sports figures who oftentimes, when something goes very right, they thank God first of all. Sometimes when that happens, people tend to think, well, that's really not true, or that's not genuine. In your experience, do you find that to be genuine?
Well, I do, because I think, first of all, for these sports celebrities, baseball, football, basketball, whatever sport, they have a great talent. Well, how did they get that talent? They got that talent through God. So I think, you're seeing it more now. In baseball games, you'll see batters go up to the plate. Even at the high school level, I'll see them make the sign of the cross. A quarterback throws a touchdown or a receiver catches a touchdown, the first thing they do is look up. Sure. So I think there's different signs. Mm-hmm. They may not be evident to a lot of people, but I think if people watch sports and are sports fans, they'll see those signs. So I think it's important. I think athletes really take it true to heart. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's showmanship. I think they truly, truly mean it.
It's interesting because when you were talking about that, we know that in the Bible, St. Paul, I believe it's 1 Corinthians 9, talks about a race and an athlete. So there's that whole sense that sports has really been part of human life from probably the beginning, and yet God enters into all aspects of our life. And so that's really important.
The thing, Father, that I just found out a couple of weeks ago is in Major League Baseball, several teams offer church services to the players, to the support staff, to both teams. Progressive Field in Cleveland does that. I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 ballparks that don't do that. So, and I'm sure there's chapel services for other sports. So, and again, a lot of these players and athletes are playing on Sunday.
Right.
And Sundays aren't what Sundays used to be.
Exactly.
I think Sunday's becoming, with all due respect, a normal day for a lot of people. So I was happy to see that. I think, what Major League Baseball at least has done, and I'm sure the NFL and any other sport, I think that makes people feel good when they can read that and see that.
Speaking of days, let's talk about your normal day. What's kind of part of it? We just see you at certain times during the day. What goes
Well,
on?
I get there early. My philosophy is when you're on time, you're late. So technically, I don't work an 8-hour day. I get there probably 1:32 in the afternoon. But you're working at home because in this day and age with social media and with cell phones, people are calling you with, this and this going on and that going on. And for 2.5 minutes for the 6 o'clock news sportscast, I gotta get what's in the what I think is the right stuff and what's beneficial to our viewers. So I get there 2 o'clock, 1:30, kind of go through the day, prepare. I write my own stuff, write my own scripts. I edit my own video. I produce my own show. At 6 o'clock, we go up, hit the air at 6:25, on for 2.5 minutes, and then do the same thing at 11. Usually get home at about midnight and don't watch all the sports at night. When I get home, kind of, because I'm doing it all day, kind of just take a break from that. Sometimes in the nice weather, go for a walk, but for the most part, it's a routine you're in. On summer days, it's very, very difficult because when the weather's nice, you're inside, but that's what we do. And, you talk about family, how we're involved with families I experienced a very unique situation several years ago. I was somewhere and a elderly lady came to me and she goes, "Your name's in an obituary." I'm like, okay. So I went to look at the paper and there was an elderly lady from Niles who passed away, and she mentioned me in her obituary as her favorite sportscaster. So when you mention family, we do affect families. Sure, we do. And I have that obituary on my desk. It hasn't left, for several years. So we are part of extended families of people who watch us.
What can we do as consumers to be better consumers of news, of sports, of events that are going on around us? Because we get so inundated sometimes with the social media. How can we better use that?
I think social media could be used a couple of different ways. Again, I'll go back to what I said. If someone is doing something positive, if you don't want to call us, send a message on social media. Social media has changed a lot of what we do in the aspect of, I think people want to know what's going on in the world as it happens. 15 years ago, we weren't able to do that because social media was not part of it. But again, I think being positive, of letting people know what's happening positive in your neighborhood, your church, your community. And I think that's where we can start and then build from there.
And how is that community at Channel 21? You've seen it change over the years. You've been part of it for a long time. How do you see it moving in the future?
Well, I think, first of all, we're locally owned, which I think is key. Our owners know who we are. They know who works for them and so on and so forth. And I just think that's so key. We're in downtown Youngstown, which downtown is coming back. I think with the university, the diocese, all part of that now, and getting some of the blight out with the university. But our family, our WFMJ family is very, we're there. We try to put the best possible product on the air. We have, nice thing about being downtown is the diocese downtown, so on Ash Wednesday, if people can't make it to Mass, a visiting priest will come down or someone close to distribute ashes to City Hall and into that. So, but I think it's just being positive. I'm going to go back to that, where I think if we get that positive flow going in the community, in the churches, in the political system, then we take that step and then go to the next step of regionally, county-wise, and then certainly I think, the sky's the limit after that.
Well, Dana Balish, it's a pleasure to have you on. Please give our friends at Channel 21 our best, and thank you for the wonderful interview and for your faith and for the great work that you do.
I appreciate you having me, and continued success to you.
Thank you. And thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you. For more pertinent information and to listen to Wineskins, visit www.doi.org, the website of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
What have you done for your marriage today?
I gave my wife a hug this morning. I told her I love her.
I did her hair this morning. I think it looks pretty good.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I bought her an orchid.
What have I done for my marriage today? I sent my husband a love email.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up. But she's still laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Make a change for the better. Need help? Go to foryourmarriage.org, a message from the Catholic Church.
By the time we can walk, each of us yearns for the joy that comes from being able to do for ourselves. Church World Service believes that being self-reliant is a joy everyone should share. So around the block or around the world, share the joy. Church World Service.
Our song today is from the CD called Just Jesus. It is by the Kellenberg Memorial High School Choir.
You are my strength when I am weak. You are the treasure that I seek. You are my all in all. Seeking you as a precious jewel, Lord, to give up I'd be a fool. You are my all in all. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Taking my sin, my cross, my shame, rising again, I bless your name. You are my all in all. When I fall down, you pick me up. When I am dry, you fill my cup. You are my all in all. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, I am Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, precious Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, my lost, my Lamb of God, bless your name. Worthy is your name. Jesus, make me Lamb of God, fill my cup. Worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name.
As we celebrate this 24th Sunday in Ordinary Time, we will hear more about the sacred scriptures by Sister Mary McCormick. She is the General Superior of the Ursuline Sisters of Youngstown.
I heard a story once about a rich man who was traveling by train from New York to Chicago. This was in the day when trains were the best way of travel. This man was so wealthy that he had his own train car with a private staff. After a sumptuous dinner, he requested pistachio ice cream for dessert. The staff said, "We have pies, cakes, pastries, and cookies. We have vanilla and chocolate ice cream, but no pistachio." The man threw a fit, so much so that at the next stop, the staff rushed off the train, in fact, made it wait in the station until they could procure pistachio ice cream for the man. They finally brought it to him and offered it with a flourish and a sense of accomplishment. He took it from them, then hurled it across the room and said, "I would rather have my grudge." The behavior and attitude of this man are exactly opposite of the point of today's gospel. When Peter asks Jesus, "How often must I forgive?" Jesus responds, 77 times. Such an exact number might surprise us, But this was Jesus' way of saying, you must forgive an infinite number of times. Peter had thought he was being magnanimous in suggesting that he forgive 7 times. Jesus expands that exponentially. So what is forgiveness? And do we really have to forgive others? To forgive is to let go of the hurt, the pain, the anger, and the resentment that we hold against another for some wrong they have done to us. The words, "I'm sorry," and "I forgive you," might come easily out of our mouths, but real forgiveness is not always so easy. To forgive is a decision, a process, and a gospel mandate. Forgiveness is a decision. When I intentionally decide to let go of the hurt, the pain, the anger, then I have begun to forgive. Lots of us hold on to our hurts, and they continue to fester inside, even if the event that caused the hurt happened months or even years ago. I liken those to the hurts of a badly skinned knee. As a kid, if I fell off my bike and got a bad bruise on my knee, a scab would form to protect it and allow it to heal. If I scratched the scab off, it would hurt and bleed all over again. In fact, it would be as much as it did when it first happened. But if I let it heal, I would remember that it had hurt, but it still didn't hurt. The same happens inside of us. If we decide to forgive, the pain and hurt can heal. I will still remember that I was hurt. I will still remember what happened, but it doesn't hurt anymore. Forgiveness is also a process. Just saying the words, "I forgive you," does not make it feel better immediately. When I have been hurt, I need to pray for the grace to heal, and I need to pray for the grace to forgive. I know that God forgives. I pray that I might imitate God's loving forgiveness. It may not happen immediately, but we will experience a gradual calm and notice that we no longer have resentments in our hearts. Forgiveness is also a gospel mandate. In today's gospel, Jesus tells us that we must forgive our brothers and sisters from our hearts. To the extent that we want to imitate Christ, we must practice this virtue of forgiveness. Unlike the rich man on the train, we need not hold on to our grudges. Following the example of Peter and of Christ, we can forgive others from our hearts. For Wineskins, I'm Sister Mary McCormick.
How often must we forgive? 7 times, 70 times, Jesus said. As often as we are hurt is how often we must forgive. Let us open our hearts and reach out in forgiveness to all people. Wineskins is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Telecommunications Network of Youngstown. It is brought to you by the Annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. I'm your host, Father Jim Corda, wishing you a beautiful week.